Hello, everyone. This is Steve with Aptera Owners Club. Recently, I had an opportunity to sit down with Chris and Steve, and I think it speaks to the level of openness and respect they have for the community that they are willing to take time out of their day to talk to a small YouTube channel and answer questions totally unedited and without any editorial control over what's put out. So I can tell I'm not a very good journalist because I get a little flustered when I'm asking what I perceive to be uncomfortable questions, and I try to ask them some uncomfortable questions in this interview. So I hope that you guys gain something out of this.
Hi.
Hey, there you go. I can hear you.
Perfect.
Perfect.
With the laptop microphone, Steve, is it too echoey?
It's not. It sounds fine on my end.
Oh, okay. Good.
Perfect.
Does it sound good when we talk in just a normal voice? Should we speak up? Does that sound good?
That sounds fine. If you're speaking normally right there, that's good.
Perfect.
Okay,
We're
that's great.
without our microphone equipment today because Chris is in Paris.
Right, and he's using it, huh?
So we're making do with the laptop today.
Yeah, I got a bunch of pictures and video from some European friends that went to that convention.
Cool.
All right, that's
So
nice.
I'm downloading it right now. I think he's got it like on his own personal server, so it's like really slow. It's taking like 4 hours to download. But
will- Seen more than we have. I think we've just seen what they posted to the Twitters.
okay. All right. Well, you guys will get to see it.
Nice. Looking forward to it.
Hey, so thanks a lot. And nice to finally talk to you, Steve. I've talked to Chris several times, but haven't had the pleasure of talking to you before.
No, it's good to finally do so. I know you've made your rounds around the Aptera team, and it's only a matter of time before we get to talk. So nice to meet you.
Great. All right. So I think we should just kind of get started. I think the question that everyone wants to know is, do we have a timeline? And do we have a timeline for when the production intent vehicles are going to be built? And is this timeline dependent on more funding, or do we have the funding for the production intent vehicles?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and we get that question all the time too. So, we do have a timeline to build these production intent builds. We do have the funds to build these production intent builds, but really we're trying to build, everything we need to have in the company to build 20,000 vehicles a year. And that's tooling, that's equipment, that's, the people, that's the processes. It's all these things that we need to come together. And we don't want to just start, building station builds or serial builds, at a couple a week. We want to get this vehicle into production at high volume so we can deliver on the promise to over 47,000 people that are now waiting for the Aptera. So the first step is to get these production intent builds done. The second step is to inspire people to continue to invest in our mission. And we hope that some of those investments are bigger dollars. We can talk about that, I'm sure, with some other questions you have.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That we can start launching and filling this plant full of people and equipment and building 20 vehicles a day to start, and then 40 vehicles a day, and then 80 vehicles a day, and then we can really start making a dent in that first 47,000 number.
And I don't know if you have seen the pictures of the Bink in France.
Yeah, looks awesome.
Thank you. Those parts were made earlier this year, and we have enough for, I think, 16 more vehicles or so. So all of those parts are already made off of commission tools. They've all gone through the validation and inspection process. You've probably seen pictures of them shrink wrapped and waiting on a rack for us to start building them.
Yes.
There's still some small design changes in the front subframe, for example. You saw recently the crash simulation video.
Mm-hmm.
Had to make some modifications in the battery frame and subframe to achieve that. And then we're on the track the next few weeks in Italy with our team and Danesi sort of validating the production geometry of the suspension. Once those parts are locked out, then we can get the castings and the frame and begin building rolling vehicles.
Okay. So I know like the based on the February update, the high production line is going to take more funding to make that. And we're going to need more funding for customer delivery vehicles. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right.
So are you waiting for that to happen to build these PI vehicles? Because the PI vehicles need a lot of testing and validation to be done, like the crash testing and things like that, right? And so, like, you have the funds to build that. So are we going to wait on the funds to build out the assembly line to build the PI builds, or are those two kind of separate things that are independent of each other?
They're two separate things, and Chris and Tom and Blake and the finance team are working really hard to get the financing in place for the high production. But in the short term, we have a number of PI builds that we have scheduled. Now they all have purposes. Some are crash tests, some are braking systems, et cetera.
Mhm.
We delay some or move some up and down the list depending upon how well the funding is going. But we are building the first ones right now.
And we
Okay.
don't need to raise more funds to build those PI builds, but we are still raising funds to build out the first production lines, buy all the tooling and equipment necessary to build at high volume. Really cool, thing is that we've already got all the high volume tooling for the body structure,
Mhm.
but have all the high volume tooling for some of the injection molds for the interior and the seats and, the castings for the frame. So those things are still yet to come. But we've had some amazing progress the last few months. It seems like since the beginning of the year, the markets have got a bit more life in them.
I
And
mean, yeah, the stock market's doing great.
yeah, we've expanded the amount of deals we have that we're considering, and
Uh-huh.
now we're zeroing in on what's best for us as we scale to production and beyond. So we're hoping to execute on something soon, and hopefully we'll be off to the races.
Okay. So what is the timeline? Like, when should we expect to see a PI build, like the first PI build? When should we expect that?
Yeah, we're working now with the Italians to complete some of the major part tooling. The problem is when you're building soft tooling, it can often take as long as it takes to build production tooling, just due with cheaper materials.
Mm.
Uh, so some of the plastics and some of the castings can take a couple months.
Mm.
And we haven't even started cutting tools for some of the parts that we have here. So we expect to have the full binks in just a few weeks. But it will take a few more months to finish out some of the bigger parts, casting and such like that.
Yeah, there's some there's some of the PI build schedule that are just basically binks and rollers. They're needed, for example, for the electrical team to route the wiring and do final placement and things like that. There's others that like Chris mentioned, parts for the interior. The tooling hasn't been made yet, so we're trying to get our heads around that whole PI build schedule in terms of timing based on what we know right now. The early ones, the ones that we can do, as I mentioned, the binks or the binks with rollers, we're starting right now. But we can only build one at a time with the production tools that we have. We're
Right.
not build any in parallel. It's really one at a time.
Right. So, like, was it PI build 3 or something is going to be like kind of the press vehicle that like looks good and you can show it around? Like, it sounds like that's like maybe even past the middle of the year, like July, August. Is that
Yeah.
what we're looking
Yeah, we hope not.
We hope
at? Okay.
Make that not the case, but that's going to be the one that's passable, at least at a distance for a production vehicle. But the main thing is that it's got the production tooling, production body, production structure,
Uh-huh.
frame, all of those things that are kind of new leaps in thinking for the company. That's what
Okay.
you're going to.
Yeah, the interesting thing, with the alpha builds and the gamma builds and beta, was that oftentimes we had the exterior of a part built, but we didn't have the interior, the B side of the part built. So like how it attaches. So like with gamma, a lot of the parts, they were formed, they were laid up in carbon fiber, and then we had to like bond a stud on the back to actually attach it to the vehicle. With this latest production build schedule, nothing really exists like that.
Right.
Everything is a production part. So not only do you have the A side, you have the B side, how it attaches. So
Which is tool.
there's
Yeah.
not a lot of wasted time with these PI builds like we wasted with Gamma and other builds, and just figuring out how to attach stuff and how it all goes together. I mean, all of these are production parts. They all have attachment strategies, attachment clips, attachment bolts, attachment whatever.
I mean, that's why we went with this technology in CPC, because when we were first building these composite bodies and trying to figure out how to scale, how do we do 100? How do we do 1,000 a year, 2,000 a year? With open mold technology, you only have one tooled side. You don't really have a tooled B side.
Mm.
And you do that, but you still have very low throughput and lots of hand labor. And these parts that we've designed now for the whole vehicle, the structure, the interior, everything, has a tooled A and B surface, and that means they nest right on each other, just like Lego blocks. So it's a radically simpler way of producing the vehicle than we have been with the betas or the alphas and the gammas, excuse me.
Yeah, I think everyone is like on board with the whole CPC thing, and I think all the community sees the advantages of that, and you guys have basically explained the advantages of that.
That's sticky.
Yeah, yeah, it looks great, and like the pictures I've seen from Paris look amazing. But I think that caused a little bit of a delay, but in the long run, that's going to make things faster. Um, but everyone is really impatient to get these vehicles. We've been with you guys since 2020 when you guys relaunched, and we're closing in on 2024. And so I'm just trying to, like, that's the question that everyone wants, is like, so we're just trying to see, like, are things progressing as expected on you guys' end? And like, it sounds like the first couple of PI builds are going to be just kind of rollers and not have the interior and maybe not have the powertrain. They're just for testing specific things. And I think everyone wants to see, like, here is the vehicle that's going to be made that people are going to take delivery of. When are we going to see that vehicle? Is it like June, July, August, September?
Exact date, but we are working to make it before June, July.
Okay.
It's an exact date because I don't have all that information now. But
okay, so that's the kind of the goal, is like June, July, to have that vehicle that has like the actual battery pack from, I guess it's being built in Korea right now. CTNS is building the battery pack in Korea.
they're building the production. Go ahead. That's true.
Yeah, they're building the production lines in Korea, and they'll build the first production packs there, probably the first several hundred production packs in Korea.
Or in modules rather, right? So the plan is they're building the assembly line and setting up there and break it down and bring it here to California.
Right.
But shipping us in the short term the PI builds of modules, and then we have our frame made from our vendor. We put the modules in the frame. We put the PDU in the frame. We make it a pack. Eventually, CTNS will own all of that.
Okay.
That's going to take some time to ramp up. But
Right.
where the value they really bring to us right now is they can ramp up the module production like that, and that's a for us.
Yeah,
Right.
they've been, strategic partner and development partner. We finished the design here, but how do you actually get the module and pack through validation? And they've got amazing assets and tools over there that we just don't have here. So, we're expecting them to speed us along, but it's not the battery pack that's slowing us down. It's not the solar. It's not the body structure. It's these other, more expensive, heavy tool things, injection molds, the castings for the suspension and the chassis. Those are the things that, cost big bucks to tool, even in soft tools. And stuff that we kicked off at the beginning of the year, but it's kind of an iterative process with the manufacturer to beat it back and forth until they actually start to cut the tools. And some of the stuff hasn't had the tools started to get cut on the injection molds and the casting. So.
Okay. Are you able to tell us who's doing that? Like, who's building the subframe and the suspension parts?
Yeah, we're working with partners in Italy and Europe for most of that stuff.
Okay.
Honestly, we're working on master supply agreements that extend well beyond the PI builds. And part of those agreements are how do they support us in the initial phases. And, they want to make these things known because they want the publicity too. So, we'll those master supply agreements as they come and as they're inked. But, the supply chain world has been a mess the last 2 years. COVID, really threw a wrench in it. Everything, which is still reverberating, but we've seen lots of prices come down the last 6 months. So it behooves us to kind of take our time and write the right supply agreements with some of these entities, and it only makes it better for us, for our customers, because we're able to offer product at a lower price. All these things are just now starting to gel, and some are economy and supply chain influenced, and some are just the timing of how you release some of these bigger and more impressive parts.
It's a well-known, highly esteemed Italian casting producer. So,
Okay. All right. Yeah, going back to that CTNS thing, there was this idea of having this joint venture between Aptera and CTNS to set up a battery, I guess, pack manufacturing endeavor in America, correct?
Yes.
Do current Aptera investors, are they going to be like part owners of that joint venture? How does that work?
They would be. So, we own 49% of that joint venture, then obviously that's an asset that Aptera owns, and the shareholders of Aptera and the community that support us will own that as well.
Okay. All right. That was a kind of a investor question that I had from one of the investors. All right. So parts 2 and 3 will be coming out in the next couple of days. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day, everyone.